You know that PS1 startup sound? That's the sound of JRPGs becoming the genre. Final Fantasy went 3D. Suikoden gave us 108 recruitable characters. Vagrant's story proved turn-based combat could be art. This console didn't just have great JRPGs, it defined what great JRPGs could be. These 20 games are the blueprint for everything you love about the genre today. Let's go.
Number 20, Parasite Eve. Look, imagine survival horror. Now imagine turn-based RPG mechanics. Now imagine Square, the biggest RPG company in the world, decides to throw those on a blender and make it their first M-rated game. That's Parasite Eve. Set in 1997 New York, you're Aya Brea, NYPD officer, and you're fighting mitochondrial horror. Literal, biological nightmare fuel. The kind of shit that makes you uncomfortable just looking at it. The combat, pausable, real time. You move Aya around freely while the ATB bar charges up. Then you pause, pick your target, gun attack, or parasite energy magic, and execute. It sounds simple, it's not. You're managing space, resources, positioning. Like if a third-person shooter and a turn-based RPG had a weird, beautiful baby. And Yoko Shimomura's soundtrack. Okay, so the composer deliberately made it sound inorganic, emotionless, clinical, because the whole game is about biology going wrong. The music feels like that. Cold, wrong, perfect. Here's the thing, it's only 10 hours. That's not a flaw. That's respecting your time. It's a complete experience that doesn't overstay, and in 1998, Square doing this, collaborating with American developers, pushing an M rating, mixing genres nobody thought would work, this was revolutionary. Did the formula stick? No. Everyone else kind of ignored it, but Parasite Eve proved that you could blend genres and not have it feel cheap. You could mix survival horror with RPG progression and actually make it cohesive. That matters.
Number 19, Legend of Legaia. Here's the question. What if combat wasn't menu-based? What if you literally choreographed every single attack? Legend of Legaia said, let's find out. The art attack system. You're inputting directional commands. Left, right, up, down, kick, punch. Combinations of these create arts, complex combos that feel kinetic, animated. The character sprites were specifically designed around this. You see exaggerated hip twists on punches, movement that feels alive because it has to match what you're physically inputting. Most games, you select attack and the game does the rest. Here, you're conducting, you're the choreographer. Michiru Oshima spent a full year on this soundtrack. 1 year for one game. And she specifically incorporated what she called an ethnic tone into the music. You hear it in the opening theme, folkloric but electronic, ancient and modern at the same time. The world feels like that too, folkloric, alive. You're not saving the world, you're exploring a dying civilization, uncovering mysteries. There's sadness underneath everything. Real talk, this combat system is polarizing as fuck. Some people find it exhausting, constant input. You can't just put the controller down, but that's exactly why it works. You're engaged every second. There's no autopilot, no just mash X and watch. That's the whole point.
Number 18, Tales of Eternia. Okay, so Namco completely messed up this one's marketing. Called it Tales of Destiny 2 in North America, despite being a completely different game with a different story, different characters, nothing to do with the first one. It's so confusing, it's almost impressive. But the actual game is solid, really solid. Linear motion battle system, real-time 2D side-scrolling action. No menus during combat. You're moving around, timing attacks, building momentum. This is where the Tales series finally nailed the formula, before they'd spend the next 20 years perfecting it. Your party actually feels like friends. They bicker, they have chemistry. You're not just 4 characters on a roster. You're watching a found family work together. Motoi Sakuraba on music, same guy who composed Star Ocean's incredible soundtrack. Energy, melody, momentum. The battles feel important because the score makes you feel important. Action-oriented combat defined the entire Tales DNA. Every game after Eternia is chasing that feeling, that moment where everything clicks and combat becomes less turn-based and more fighting game with RPG stats underneath. Why is it here and not higher? Because it got overshadowed by its own marketing disaster. Namco savagely sabotaged its own game with the naming confusion. People didn't know what they were buying, so it got lost in the shuffle. But for people who actually played it, Eternia was the moment Tales became what it needed to be.
So you've got medieval fantasy, you've got sci-fi, you've got Western gunslinger stuff. Now imagine a game that says, what if we just mashed all of that together? Wild Arms. Nobody was doing this. Medieval swords? Sure. Pure sci-fi? Absolutely. But Western fantasy JRPG with steampunk and puzzle solving that wasn't just navigate dungeon, find treasure? This was weird. This was risky and absolutely worked. The tools mechanic. You need bombs, grappling hooks, specific items to progress through the world. This isn't combat progression. This is adventure progression. Dungeons have puzzles. Overworld has obstacles. You're exploring and problem solving, not just grinding. Michiko Naruke's score has this signature whistling part, performed by Naoki Takao. And that sound, that melancholic, adventurous whistling, it became the identity of the entire series. Naruke composed over 400 songs for Wild Arms games, total 400. But that whistling, that's what you remember. The world has this mood, adventurous but sad simultaneously. You're exploring ruins of a dead civilization, finding ancient technology. There's wonder, but there's also loss. This game started Sony's Wild Arms IP, lasted forever, spawned remakes, sequels, remasters, all because Akifumi Kaneko decided, let's make a Western JRPG. Criminally underrated. Okay, so Sega CD had this game, Lunar, Silver Star, niche release. Not many people played it. Then it came to PlayStation, and Game Arts said, what if we just went crazy with production values? Full voice acting, anime cutscenes that look incredible. This was insane in 1999. You had text-based dialogue in most JRPGs. Here you had fully voiced characters having full conversations with anime production behind them. The collector's edition, look, this is how you sell a game. Soundtrack CD, art book, cloth map. People lined up at GameStop for this thing. It was a package. It was special. It felt like you were getting something more than just a game. The narrative is lighthearted, charming, feels like an old school RPG should feel like. Adventure, without pretension. Characters you like hanging out with. Noriyuki Iwadare on music, same guy who would go on to compose the entire Ace Attorney series. The score here is whimsical, fitting, but here's the thing, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The core gameplay is deliberately simple, almost too simple. The battle system is lackluster, according to critics. You pick attacks from a menu, low customization, pretty easy. For a PS1 JRPG, it's mechanically lightweight. And you know what? That's fine, because this game knew what it was. It was presentation masterclass. It was, here's a charming adventure with beautiful production. The mechanics were secondary. The experience was the point, and it worked.
Number 15, Chrono Cross. This is controversial. Chrono Cross is the sequel to Chrono Trigger. Maybe, depending on who you ask. Takes place 20 years later, different main cast, same world though, mostly. And here's where people lose their minds. It kills off beloved Chrono Trigger characters. Chrono, Marl, Luca, gone, dead, not playable. This pissed people off. Still does. But mechanically, this game is wild. Element grid system. By endgame, you've got over 40 element slots to manage. Magic, abilities, buffs, all organized through this grid. And the element weakness system, it completely subverts what you expect. Red is weak to blue, green to yellow, black to white. Not rock, paper, scissors, something different. Something that forces you to learn a new language. Yasunori Mitsuda back on music, and some fans argue his Chrono Cross score just barely beats Trigger's. That's a hot take that starts arguments in forums still. Masato Kato directed and wrote this. Full creative control, and he used it to make something bold and weird and divisive. Real talk, Chrono Cross tried to recontextualize its predecessor, add new meaning to it. Some people see that as genius reframing, some people see it as sacrilege. Both are valid. That's why it's here. Not because it's universally loved, but because it took massive creative risks and committed to them.
Number 14, Breath of Fire 4. Look at the screen. Look at those character sprites. Gorgeous, right? High fidelity 2D animation.
Those aren't hand-drawn backgrounds pretending to be 3D. That's actual 2D character art moving through actual 3D environments. Capcom did over 3,000 frames of animation per character. That's ridiculous. That's obsessive, and you can feel it. Breath of Fire 4 has this dual narrative thing going on. You play as Ryu, silent protagonist who doesn't know who or what he is, but you also play as Fao Lu, an emperor, sympathetic, tragic, heartbreaking. His arc resonates with people in ways most JRPG villains don't. Master System lets you customize stat growth by training under specific masters. You're not just leveling up generic. You're building a specific character based on who taught you. Mid-battle party switching, rare in 1998. Most games locked you in. Here, you swap party members on the fly. Opens up tactical depth. Combat system has combo chaining potential. It feels good, weighty, satisfying. And then the ending happens. Ryu fuses with Fao Lu, destroys the divine entities, and critics said, that's preachy, that's philosophical cliche, that sacrifices narrative logic for philosophical message. They're not wrong. The story gets messy at the end, philosophical but hollow. But those sprites, that animation, that will always hit.
Number 13, Breath of Fire 3. This is where Breath of Fire came to PlayStation. First game in the series on PS1. 3D environments, 2D character sprites, that hybrid aesthetic, and it works, really works. Dragon Gene combination system. Ryu, your protagonist, collects dragon genes. You combine them to customize his dragon transformation. Different combinations create different forms, different abilities. You're building your own power set, not just leveling up a preset transformation. The character cast is genuinely great. Rei is a tragic were-tiger character that people love. Momo's the scientific genius who actually feels like she has expertise. You're not just hanging out with random party members. These people have weight. Extensive minigames, deep fishing. The world feels lived in, like there's more to do than just push forward through the main story. Here's the real talk though, and critics say this consistently. The story is incoherently written. Parts feel nonsensical, like they were stitched together from unrelated concepts. The narrative structure is meandering. You're following Ryu as he's hunted by manipulative goddess Miria, but the plot doesn't always make sense. It's like the game had a great setting, great mechanics, interesting character moments, but nobody quite figured out how to weave it into a cohesive story. Doesn't matter though, because the character writing and the Dragon Gene system are strong enough that you don't notice. You just go along for the ride.
Number 12, Legend of Dragoon. 4 discs. Think about that. 4 discs for one PS1 game. That's 600 plus megabits of content when most games were doing 2 to 3. And the addition combat system, you're in battle, your character attacks, during the attack animation, a button prompt appears. Press it right and you get a multi-hit combo. Miss it and you get a basic attack. Every single physical attack, every one, requires this timing mechanic. You're not just watching combat, you're participating, tapping buttons to build momentum, building a gauge that lets you transform into dragoons, legendary dragon warriors, full cinematic sequences. Your character becomes this powerful mystical being. Combat becomes spectacle, becomes interactive cinema. The story follows Dart. His hometown burns. He's seeking vengeance. Fate, revenge narrative, it leans into melodrama deliberately. And this is late 90s anime fantasy melodrama, so it's grand, epic, sometimes cheesy, but earnest. Music balances tragedy and heroism. 4 discs means 4 hours easy. You're investing time. The game respects that time with Scoop. Hidden quality of life feature? Press R2 or L2 on the world map, zoom out, see a red pointer showing your next objective. Tiny thing, but it saves frustration when you're lost. And you know what? Legend of Dragoon didn't redefine JRPGs, but it carved a loyal fan base that still campaigns for remakes, still loves this game. That's the edition system. That's the Dragoon transformations. Iconic, memorable. Sony's competing with their own IP. Worked.
Number 11, Valkyrie Profile. Norse mythology, dark narrative, beautiful music, and a game so complex that it's expensive to find physically even now. Available digitally though, no excuses, play it. Developed by Triace, Motoi Sakuraba composing, and the combat system is unique as fuck. Multi-button combat. Your 4 party members are mapped to your controller buttons. Square, triangle, circle, cross. During your turn, you press button combinations to initiate multi-hit combos. Timed inputs chain into powerful finishing moves called Purify Gorgeous. That sounds ridiculous. It is. It's also brilliant. Einherjar Recruitment, you're Lenneth. You recruit fallen human souls, train them, eventually transfer them to Valhalla based on strict statistical requirements set by the goddess Freya. This is period management, highly demanding. You balance keeping valuable units for yourself versus satisfying Freya's requests to advance the plot. Every decision matters. Here's the catch. Requirements for the best ending, the A ending, are hidden, strict. You can permanently miss content, miss the canonical conclusion, all because you mismanaged your recruits. Learning curve is brutal. Complex, non-standard mechanics, few save points, lengthy story sequences. Not an on-the-go game. This demands your attention. But that's the point. Valkyrie Profile isn't trying to be accessible. It's trying to be rewarding for people who master it. And it achieves that. Expensive physically, rare, but digitally available on PS3, PS4, PS5. Get it, play it. You'll understand why people still talk about this game.
Okay, Vagrant story. Yasumi Matsuno, director, producer, designer, writer, everything. All 4 roles, one person. This game is his vision, unfiltered. Hitoshi Sakamoto on music. And what you get is this dense, atmospheric score that sits underneath a game that's simultaneously beautiful and absolutely punishing. Risk chain system. You're in combat. You input rhythmic button sequences to link attacks together. Chain them. Build momentum. Damage goes up. But chaining increases your risk stat. High risk means your accuracy drops, defense drops. You become vulnerable to massive counter damage. But, and this is the trick, high risk also increases your critical hit chance. So you're constantly doing this cost-benefit calculation. Do I chain 8 hits and keep myself relatively safe? Or do I go for the big combo and gamble on crits while being exposed? It's tactical, it's tense, it's anti-casual by design. And then there's weapon synthesis. No shops, no NPCs selling items. Everything you get, you craft. Equipment you find, you customize. Weapon type matters. Affinity matters. You're managing an inventory that would make most people's heads hurt, called Medieval Gear Solid at the time. And yeah, Agent Ashley Riot, solo character, going through dungeons, targeting enemy body parts. Not knowing which parts to attack leads to frustrating game overs. Very challenging, very demanding. But here's why it matters. Every single system is designed to reward mastery. This isn't a game that holds your hand. This is a game that says, figure it out or fail. And when you figure it out, when you understand the risk chain timing, when you've optimized your weapon loadout, that's when Vagrant Story becomes one of the most rewarding RPG experiences you can have. The payoff is immense because the difficulty was real. Visuals still crisp, in-engine everything. Holds up today better than games that came out 10 years after it. One person's vision, completely realized. That's Vagrant Story.
Okay, so this is where Final Fantasy stopped being about saving the world and started being about, well, politics, war, religion, betrayal. Yasumi Matsuno again. Directed and wrote this. Set in Ivalice, same world as Vagrant Story. Hitoshi Sakimoto composing. And what you get is this intricate political drama wrapped in a tactical battle system. The job system. This is the blueprint. This is what every tactical RPG looks at and goes, okay, how do we do that? You earn job points. Spend them to unlock abilities across an interconnected network of classes. And here's the brilliance. Abilities carry over between classes. You can create a black mage using Iaido master techniques. You can create a frontline healer who benefits from friendly fire with specific elemental gear. Magic boost acts as a 33% damage multiplier. You're stacking systems on top of systems, creating synergies, building optimal character combos. And the mechanical density reflects the narrative philosophy. Matsuno designs systems with high ceilings that punish mediocrity. You can't just autopilot through Final Fantasy tactics. You have to think, plan, strategize, character progression. The story is mature, political intrigue, historical revisionism, class warfare, religious conspiracy. This isn't your typical save the world narrative. You're caught in a political conflict, watching history get rewritten, understanding that wars aren't won by heroes. They're won by whoever controls the narrative. It's bleak. It's intelligent. It respects your intelligence as a player. steep learning curve. Some people bounce off it hard, but for people who invest, this is where job system mastery becomes addictive. Established a standard for tactical RPGs, still holds up, still plays tight, still demands mastery. That's longevity.
Number 8, Star Ocean, The Second Story. Dual protagonist system. You pick Claude or Reyna at the start. Different dialogue, different relationships, different character interactions, different endings. People play this twice to see both perspectives, and that's the design working exactly as intended. Fast-paced real-time combat. Positioning matters. Timing matters. You're not just selecting menu options. You're managing space, managing cooldowns, reacting to enemy placement. But here's where Star Ocean gets special. The item creation system. It's notoriously complex, mechanically deep, and almost entirely hidden from players. You buy skill purchases in shops. Seems innocuous, but these unlock crafting recipes. And once you understand the system, blacksmithing advanced gear, using orchestral arrangements to boost alchemy stats, you realize there's an entire layer of depth most players never touch. It's brilliant and completely obscured. The original game had no explanation. You had to discover it yourself or read a guide. That's not great game design, but it also created this sense of mystery, of discovery. 2023 remake fixed this. Added quality of life explanations, finally made the system transparent. And you know what? The remake was praised specifically because it solved this problem while keeping the depth intact. Private actions, PAs, optional character interactions when the protagonist enters a town alone. These build relationships, influence endings. They're essential for the full experience, but completely skippable. Motoi Sakuraiba on music, energetic, melodic, battle themes hit different, overworld themes feel epic. The game rewards exploration, rewards understanding hidden mechanics, rewards playing it multiple times with different protagonists. That's sophisticated game design dressed up as a sci-fi fantasy adventure.
Number 7, Grandia. Initiative point battle system. Semi-real-time combat. You and enemies move along a dedicated action bar toward an act point. The strategic core, cancel. You interrupt enemies. Hit them with the right move at the right time when they're charging toward the act point, and you negate their entire turn. Timing and risk assessment. Success means action economy advantage. Failure means you eat damage. Skills and magic level through repeated use. You're encouraged to experiment, try different abilities. High-level magic casts near instantaneously, allowing clutch interrupts. This battle system is legitimately one of the best ever designed. Decades later, people still point to Grandia as the template for how to make semi-real-time combat feel tactical and rewarding. But Grandia isn't just mechanics. It's Saturday morning cartoon energy. Justin dreams of becoming a great explorer. He sets out globetrotting, discovering, and the party, they're wide-eyed kids struggling to get by. There's earnestness here, contagious optimism that sets it apart from darker PS1 JRPGs. Noriyuki Iwadare composed the music, energetic battle themes, beautiful melodies. The score captures the spirit of adventure perfectly. Uplifting. Makes you want to explore. Colorful visuals. Nostalgic 90s anime aesthetic. The world feels whimsical. Linear progression, but it still feels like globetrotting. You're not saving the world from dark forces. You're going on an adventure with friends. And that sounds simple, but it's rarer than you'd think. Grandia understood what adventure feels like emotionally, and it delivered that consistently. That's why people love this game.
Number 6, Suikoden II. 108 recruitable characters, stars of destiny. Each one has a backstory. Each one matters. Recruiting them transforms your headquarters into a bustling fortress. You're not just collecting units. You're building an army, building an alliance, watching your castle grow from nothing into a functional war machine. 3 layers of conflict. Standard 6-person battles, strategic war battles, mechanically considered not well implemented but narratively important, one-on-one duels. Different battle types, different stakes. But the narrative core? The Ryu-Joey storyline. Brotherhood, best friends. And the game foreshadows betrayal so carefully that when it happens, it destroys you. This friendship ending in heartbreak isn't a twist, it's inevitable. And that makes it worse. Luca Blight, villain, frequently listed among the most effective antagonists in the genre. defined by sheer brutality. You fight him with 3 separate parties and he still almost kills you. The encounter design reflects how dangerous he is. This was composed by Miki Higashino. Score ranges from intimate character moments to massive war epicness, varied, emotional, and the ensemble writing. Beyond major plot points, you've got beloved character interactions, Tengar, gaslighting Hicks, small moments that build world and character simultaneously. Konami had production issues, barely printed copies. Game became rare physically. HD Remaster just released March 2025 on PS4, PS5, Switch, Xbox, and PC. Often cited as the series' peak. And for good reason. Suikoden II is a masterclass in storytelling. Political complexity with human stakes at the center. You're not watching heroes fight evil. You're watching people make impossible choices during war. Some survive, some don't. The world changes regardless. That's heavy. That's real.
Number 5, Suikoden I. This is the foundation, the template. Everything Suikoden II does, it's built on what Suikoden I established. 108 stars of destiny recruitment for the best ending. Base building mechanic. You establish headquarters. It becomes your fortress. Resource management. Narrative scope that goes beyond save the world. 3 different battle mechanics introduced. Revolutionary for the time. Standard turn-based RPG, tactical war battles, one-on-one duels, multiple approaches to conflict. Miki Higashino on music establishes the series' sonic identity. The story follows you building an army and alliance, not to save the world from dark forces, but because your homeland is caught in a war between nations. You're picking sides, building power. The conflict is political, not cosmic. Gremio's sacrifice. You need to spare enemy commander Milich to secure Gremio's return. Complex narrative choices, consequences matter. Simpler scope than 2, but intense emotional moments. You're investing in characters, in the world, understanding that personal relationships matter more than world-ending stakes. HD Remaster released, signals lasting community attachment. People care about this game. Still play it, still recruit all 108 stars. That's the foundation. That's the template that spawned an entire franchise legacy.
Number 4. Final Fantasy IX. Love letter to the series past, but also a philosophical meditation on mortality and identity. After FF7 and FF8 went modern and cyberpunk, Final Fantasy IX said, what if we just went back? Fantasy kingdoms, crystal lore, classical setting, Zidane, Garnet, Vivi, Steiner, one of the most charming casts ever assembled in an RPG. Super deformed cartoony art style, initially divisive as hell. New players from FF7 and FF8 expected realistic models. This was chibi, whimsical. Veteran fans loved the nostalgia packed into it. ATB battle system refined to near perfection. Equipment-based ability learning, your class determines what you learn, structure returns, simplicity underneath. But the narrative depth. Jesus, the game explores mortality and identity. Vivi's arc, Kuja's arc, and Zidane's crisis. He realizes his own existence is tied to being a puppet. Identity crisis hits hard. You're Not Alone plays in the background. His friends literally return to support him, uniting over their own confusion about identity. That scene, that moment, people cite it decades later. It's unforgettable. Nobuo Uematsu's score. Argument could be made it's his best Final Fantasy work. Melodies of Life still gives chills. The world of Gaia is richly realized. Alexandria, Lindblom, everywhere you go feels alive, densely populated with history. FF9 is celebrated for philosophical reflection, but it's also just beautiful, visually, musically, narratively. It's a love letter, but it's also genuinely great on its own merits.
Okay, so Tetsuya Takahashi pitched a story idea for Final Fantasy VII. Square looked at it and said, this is too dark, too philosophical, too weird. So they said, make your own game. Thus, Xenogears. Yasunori Mitsuda composing, same guy who did Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. Turn-based combat augmented by gears, mecha combat layer, you fight as characters, you fight as giant robots, dual system. But the reputation of Xenogears rests entirely on narrative depth. This game applies Christian symbolism, Lacanian psychodynamics, Freudian Oedipal theory to its narrative. It's intellectually dense.
Relationship between Faye and Ellie suggests Faye subconsciously projects male longing for the mother onto her. This game functions as mature intellectual discourse, using video games as the medium. And then Disc 2 happens. Xenogears' development reveals a crucial tension at Squaresoft. Aggressive 2-year development deadline, inexperienced staff learning 3D on the job, production delays mounting. Squaresoft suggested ending the game early. Takahashi refused. He was afraid Incomplete Story would never get funding for a sequel, so he proposed something unconventional. Disc 2 as a visual novel. Dense exposition dumps, limited gameplay, narrative completion prioritized over gameplay quality. He sacrificed gameplay to finish the story, to convey the narrative scope, flashbacks to past lives, philosophical conclusions, everything the game needed to say. Disc 2 is frustrating, pacing is rough, people actively hate it, but it also means Xenogears' narrative is complete, philosophically cohesive, not cut short. That's a choice, a real choice. Prioritize artistic integrity over immediate player satisfaction. Xenogears is flawed, technically compromised, but philosophically profound. Most ambitious games usually are.
Number 2, Final Fantasy VII. 3 discs, not 4. The PC version got 4, but PS1, 3. Cloud's journey from aloof mercenary to hero burdened by identity and guilt, one of the most iconic character arcs ever conceived. Materia system revolutionary, plug magic orbs into weapons and armor, limitless flexibility, any character can take any role. Stacking counterattack materia, synergy potential is insane. Cyberpunk world full of moral questions, corporate greed, human resilience, environmental collapse, and somehow personal story, Cloud's identity crisis, intersects with all of it. Gorgeous pre-rendered backgrounds blended with in-engine character models. The visual style looks dated now, but at the time, absolutely alien, cutting edge. One-winged angel, cultural touchstone, theme that became iconic. Nobuo Uematsu's best work. Argument could be made it's his best video game composition, period. Perfect storm of innovation, storytelling, style, accessibility. This game defined an entire generation of JRPGs, brought the genre to mainstream audience. Watershed moment for PlayStation, watershed moment for the medium. Here's the thing though, and I'm not dismissing it, this game's immense legacy has sparked debate. Some observers note continuous cultural and developmental focus on FF7 risks overshadowing quality and diversity of other titles in the series. Remake series, Kitase returning as lead producer, decades of continued investment. FF7's shadow is long, sometimes too long, but the original is deserved. It's a masterpiece. It's culturally significant. It's mechanically sound. It's narratively engaging. Not perfect, but remarkable.
Number 1, Final Fantasy VIII. Few games split fans like this. Followed global phenomenon FF7 with completely different direction. And it worked, mostly, depending on who you ask. Romantic, moody, sometimes abstract, magnificent. Squall starts cold and reserved, emotionally closed off. Throughout the game, he slowly opens up, coming-of-age tale wrapped in time compression sci-fi epic. Growing up, finding love, confronting destiny. Junction system links magic directly to stats. Draw magic from enemies or designated locations. Bind that magic to HP, strength, defense via equipped Guardian forces. Using junctioned magic lowers corresponding stat boost, discourages traditional spellcasting, forces you to make decisions. Do I cast this spell or keep the stat boost? The system is divisive as hell. Slow, tedious draw command frustrates people, but players who master it, who use refine abilities to acquire high-level spells early, they achieve completely busted power scaling from the start. Mastery enables dominance. That's rewarding for people who put in work. Groundbreaking visuals and CG cutscenes still hold up today. World feels grounded, yet surreal. Modern cities and military infrastructure blended with fantasy and sci-fi elements. Eyes on Me, the first vocal theme for the series. Emotional, memorable, arguably best Final Fantasy score overall. Nobuo Uematsu at his absolute peak. Composition, melody, emotional resonance. Perfect. Dared to be different. Feels deeply personal. Like Kitase was working through something. most hated over time, people will say, but magnificent soundtrack, memorable cast, bold mechanical decisions. Why is it number one? Because it represents something crucial about the PS1 JRPG era. Developers didn't chase formula. They didn't think FF7 was successful, make more FF7. They thought FF7 was successful, so now we can risk something completely different. Final Fantasy VIII is bold, it's risky, it's divisive, but it's completely committed to its vision. That's the spirit of PS1. Take technology that seemed impossible, push it further, do something nobody's done before, accept that some people will hate it, because the people who love it, they'll love it forever. FF8 is that game. It's polarizing, but nobody who loves it is casual about it. They're passionate, defensive, because they understand something other people don't, or don't want to understand. That's why it's number one. Not because it's objectively the best, but because it represents the era perfectly. Ambitious, flawed, beautiful, divisive, real.
So that's 20. And yeah, we're gonna get destroyed for leaving out Chrono Cross at higher spots or Wild Arms or whatever you loved that didn't crack the list. That's fine. That's the conversation. But these 20 games, they shaped what JRPGs became. They shaped what's possible in the medium. PS1 wasn't just a stepping stone. It was a crucible where modern design conventions got forged, where developers had technology they didn't fully understand and decided to experiment anyway. Some experiments worked, some didn't. All of them mattered. And that's what made the PS1 JRPG era special. It was fearless.